Hello everyone. First of all, I apologizing for being absent for the past couple of days, but I got sick. I'm still am sick. I had the weekend off and I needed to rest, needed to put also some ideas in order, also needed to cool down my head, because doing night shifts and being aware of the current situation, trying to read the news and doing everything at the same time and taking care of family has been a little bit too much for me. And so and then now I got sick, some kind of flu, persistent flu, and so that's why I really needed the break. I'm still sick, but as I'm a dedicated worker, I don't take sick leave, I go to work just the same. There's work to be done and we have to do it. And I just wanted to talk about the latest updates and how this madness is unfolding, both in Ukraine and the Middle East. Mainly in the Middle East. Of course, Ukraine has been for quite some time. The Middle East has been for 75 years. Anyway, so Joe Biden, when he talks like, of course we can fight in every front because we are the most powerful nation in the world, and this must worry the normal person, at least the normal working person, because when you look at the United States and they approve package after package, dozens of billions of dollars, and they do it lightly, and they do it openly. They go on TV, these hawkish people, the Lindsey Grahams of this world. In Europe is the von der Leyens and the Michels of this world, and they just approve these billions of packages to feed all the wars, all in what? In name of what? You guessed it, in name of freedom and democracy. One has to be real stupid, or to be real asleep, or numbed by some drug or something, to fall for this persistently. I mean, of course emergencies can arise, something sometimes comes up in a society where it has to get together and react and make sacrifices. This is just, I mean, first you have financial crisis, then you have COVID and more financial crisis, and now the wars. And what the end result is that the richer get richer and the poor get poorer. This is the end result. This is the end result common in all parts of the world that are related to these events. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and as the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, you have social unrest. You have increase in dissent, you have symptoms like the increase in the radical right, and you have increased state control grip on populations. You have censorship. For example, now Al Jazeera is being a target of censorship. But many other channels, all channels, have already been targeted for censorship. And this is not the Cold War, where you are happily living in your European booming economy or US middle class strong economy, and you hear a lot of these news that lack a lot of restrictions and lack of movement for the people, and so on and so on and so forth, in the Soviet Union space. This is within our space. look, I am a communist, and when I look at the Soviet Union history, I can look at it with critical eyes, right? Of course, I say it's a stupidity when some fool who doesn't know anything about it just comes and says, "Oh, it was a dictatorship," and just brands it like this in a very simplistic way. I don't see it like that, but I can see the positive sides and the negative sides. And the negative sides that are mainly pointed out by these so-called liberals from the West are exactly the mistakes that are being done now. Excess centralization of power, stronger grip from the state, but not for the sake of distribution. This is very important, because you have different types of grip from the state. You can have grip from the state, control from the state, but you have distribution of wealth, and you keep the strategic enterprises in the state sphere. Or you can have strong grip from the state just for the sake of having the dominant class in power, of keeping the dominant class in power, which, by the way, was the case of the Portuguese dictatorship. The state was strong, but just to please a few families that owned everything. Okay, so I don't want to divert too much. This is just the symptoms I've seen. For example, in the European Union, I mean, states like Portugal are no longer sovereign. They dance to the tune of the European Union. They do investments that the European Union allow them to do or tell them to do. We are no longer self-governed. And if we rebel, well, the hammer drops down and you are left in utter misery. You've become too dependent on this. I'm sorry. Sorry for this, guys. So, as the world goes to turmoil, you have the tension in the Middle East. Everyone was, before the Middle East, remember, everyone was talking about a second front in the Far East with the Chinese. I guess no one saw this coming. Not even the mainstream media, not even the alt media. Some media saw it, but they were like under the heap of all the other subjects, because there are independent media that kept relentlessly the reports on the Israeli-Palestinian situation throughout these years, but no one paid attention to them. So now the keg of powder exploded. There are reports already that there are ground confrontations between Hamas and Israel, according to Al Jazeera. The two sides have confirmed, and the bombings keep increasing. If you wanna know about something more about this hospital incident from the other day, look, I know I'm doing a mistake by saying what I'm about to say, but for me it's a little bit too obvious. Just for a reason, it was Israel bombing, right? At least the most verifiable video points to that. Of course, I know the need of thorough investigation, but it's my opinion, okay? I mean, look at the history. Israel never refrained from bombing hospitals before. They bombed the UN warehouse, logistic warehouse, for F's sake. They are bombing they are razing entire residential buildings. All they need to say is, Hamas is there. Hamas has a base there. And then they bomb it. I mean, it's a bit... I think we lose too much energy in this discussion, right? It's a bit too obvious. Nevertheless, investigation must be made. So, putting that aside, bombings continue. They let in a couple of trucks. Well, when I say a couple, you know, I think it was 17 trucks through the Rafah crossing from Egypt into the Gaza Strip. But this is like a drop in the ocean. Like I've said, I've talked about this before. They were announcing 20 trucks, but they don't let in fuel, for example. And then when Israel tells again and again for people to leave, I ask you, when you have infrastructures like hospitals that have dozens of newborn babies connected to the machines, to the incubator machines, on life support, are you going to just remove the baby and take it under your arm or something and put it in another house? This is utter stupidity and utter cruelty. And they keep reminding you about they keep pointing you with the single story of the mother whose the son was taking drugs at this festival beside the Gaza Strip, having a blast beside this open air prison. And oh, how poor, how they were caught unaware by the cruel terrorist Hamas. Israel is doing terrorism every day. Every day. If it's not terrorism, what is it? What is it? And now the US lost two good opportunities to save these civilians, like they always claim. I mean, Blinken in his speeches, in his addressing speeches, and even Biden talks about, we always have in mind minimizing the civilian casualties or something like this. No, they don't. It's utter lie, right? Their actions indicate otherwise, and the actions is what we have to hold in account. So I can say that I'm your best friend, and I can steal from you the next day. So it's my actions that count, right? Not this empty words. They are there for Israel because Israel is their their bridgehead in the Middle East. The most important one. They need to destabilize the Middle East in order to exercise their control. And this is far more important than Ukraine for the US, right? Just go look at the history. So, two proposals for ceasefire were rejected. One because it was from Russia, obviously. They said it was because it didn't condemn Hamas. BS, I call BS on that. The second one condemned Hamas, but it didn't point out enough that is the need of Israel or recognize the right of Israel to defend himself. So you can always make an excuse, right? When you don't want to do something, you can always make an excuse. In the meantime, Ukraine is boiling. Russians on the offensive. The latest news is that the Russians are pushing strong, exerting enormous amount of pressure in Avdiivka. I know that following the war guys like Dima and other guys, and blogs, Ukrainian bloggers, you can see all the videos. A lot of Russian equipment destroyed as they do the offensive with enormous amounts of quantities of armored cars and tanks and so on. But nevertheless, they are decided to make that conquest, to finish Avdiivka once and for all. You know, Avdiivka has been one of the places where Ukraine has been bombing civilians in Donetsk since 2014. And so I think this is it's a crucial fight that everyone wants to see ended, and I think the Russians want too, because they are taking losses, they are making sacrifice. One must recognize this. But I think they are decided for what I see. They took the famous heap of garbage for the third time. If you don't know what this heap of trash or waste heap is, search for it. The Russians gave it a name that I don't recall at this moment. But search for it. It's this kind of dominant position that has been fought for now lately in the last days, and the Russians conquered, the Ukrainians took it back, the Russians took it back, the Ukrainians took it back, and now apparently the Russians took it back again. and they are already dominating a lot of other important heights. And it all indicates that despite the losses, they will advance. They are exerting, they are putting the means. They are doing what we have seen the Russians do in previous conflicts, when they really have the intentions to move forward. Meanwhile, in the south, Ukrainians try this amphibious assaults, establish a couple of bridgeheads, not very significant because they are being bombed in their rear, with their boats bombed and their logistics bombed, and so even if they can put soldiers entrenched in these islands and in these small footholds on the other side of the river, they will not able to develop any big offensive. It's my opinion, right? And even if they do, the bigger the offensive they want to do, they will always have to cross the river to bring in supplies. And remember, this was the main reason that the Russians abandoned the other side of the river, because it's a pain in the ass and you have a lot of losses if you want to keep the bridgehead depending on crossing a river to get your supplies to the front line. So I think if this is a desperate attempt from the Ukrainian side, they need to not to lose the support from the West. By the way, have you seen this John Kirby? The words from John Kirby in a press release, in a press conference statement, that eventually the aid to Ukraine is not endless, it's not infinite. Yeah. Having said this, I don't believe they will let go of it just like that. But things are shaking. And now if you add to this a possible intervention in the Far East, I mean, I think Biden is insane. It's insane. Look at these societies. Before all of this crisis, when the groups in society like the workers' unions, they demand, citizens groups at large in general, they demand better conditions, better welfare, better healthcare, better public services, better education. And there is always excuses for, there are always budgetary excuses, right? We've seen this throughout history. So, going to the beginning of my conversation, I'm just driving, I don't have any notes on me, so forgive me if I ramble too much. But this is the point I wanted to make, because all these billions of packages approved lightly on false pretexts, we know that the money is just circling back to the super wealthy, weapons makers and so on. And look at the infrastructure of the United States. I mean, it's appalling. Look at entire communities in the United States living on the streets. It's miserable how such a proud nation such as the US takes care of its citizens like this. They utter condemn the people. They use this word meritocracy, right? So the good things only should happen to people who deserved it, who makes the things happen, who are entrepreneurs and the like. And so what this implies is that the unfavored ones do not deserve anything, and they should perish if they will. They should suffer with all kinds of problems that come from this vulnerability, right? So when you think of this meritocracy thing and this society, this liberal society that just want to reward the people that do effort, I wonder what was the effort of the son of a billionaire, other than being the son of a billionaire. You see where this is going? This apparently makes sense to reward the ones who deserves. But this makes sense only to certain extents if you think about it. When you overdo it, when you accumulate the wealth for long periods of time, bigger and bigger accumulation of wealth in certain groups in the 1%, what you have, it's going back to the times of the monarchy, absolute monarchy. They are the ones that control the governments. They control the nobility. You might call the governments the new nobility. They control the small businesses, the small bourgeoisie, and they control the peasants, the slaves, the workers. We, us. It's a different version, of course. You can all argue about all the good things that we have now. Well, this is mainly due to technology. Don't ever forget that. Technology, which is the fruit of labor. Don't ever forget that. You know that huge companies make millions, billions of profits, and then when they don't need the workers, just put them, lay them off, let them go into misery. So yeah, this whole meritocracy thing gives a big discussion and a lengthy one. I don't want to go through all that link, but just think about the example. What is the merit of the sons, of the cousins, of the privileged people that are already born in these privileged families? I know some examples in Portugal, but because Portugal is no exception to this, right? People that got into the administrations of big companies earning like 30,000 euros a month when they are like 20 or 23 years old, as soon as they finish faculty. A lot of merit. It's like the famous son of Joe Biden, right? A bright guy, according to Joe Biden. A bright guy. So one needs to do something about this, right? I do these videos mainly, I don't want to be arrogant, I don't know more than others. I'm not an expert, I don't claim to be one. But I, as a conscience, or at least I try to be aware, I try to be conscious, to be a conscious citizen. I would like very much to my audience to be also conscious and ask themselves the questions. Not to rush into immediate conclusions, like I just did, for example, with the instance of the Israeli bombing of the hospital. It's just my opinion, but I reserve some space to change this opinion after a thorough and independent investigation is made. And yeah, you should question, you should look critically. But some things are quite obvious, right? The hypocrisy from the EU is one of these. Because I might make a mistake to judge Israel, but I'm just a citizen. What harm can I do? But when you have the von der Leyens of this world and the Lindsey Grahams of this world condemning just Hamas and condemning the Palestinians to live in these miserable conditions, and only looking at the so-called Israel's right to defense, violating all the human rights in a bigger scale than one ever imagined. And these are the ones that claim to be the democracies, the beacons of freedom. One must think, right? Please spread the word, help me spread the word. I'm gonna end this video now and do my whatever working people do, right? Take care of laundry, take care of household, take care of the sons and daughters' issues, go to work and whatever. And I'll try in the meantime, thanks to technology, I can upload while I'm doing other stuff. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for having the patience to listening to or watching my videos. See you the next time. Subscribe the channel, share my work, help my channel grow. And yeah, all I can promise is that I keep doing this stuff. The rain has finally came, finally. We are being blessed by rain for some days now. Of course, also some storms. And I hope our reservoirs are replenished. I hope it rains enough for that. It has to rain a lot, you know, because they were quite low. and so I haven't been able, also being sick, haven't been able to do the videos outside. I'll have some news for you soon. I will go into some different places and do some videos there, and then I will report to you. I'll do the best I can. Thank you very much. Bye bye.